And welcome back to part 2, Dream Big, Creating a Better Life for Yourself and the Planet. And we are here in part 2 with Jayashree from India, who is talking to us about conscious parenting in the second segment, conscious parenting and unconscious parenting, and how we can bring consciousness and spirituality into our parenting and into our children's lives. Something that is maybe more challenging here in the West. In India, probably increasingly more challenging because there too we have a lot more emphasis on the rational, the logical world. Everything is fast changing, and we are all struggling to deepen awareness and presence and bring that gift to our children. And that's what I want to ask you, Jayashree, here in the second part of the interview. The first part of the interview was all about the school, the alternative school, your inspiration, how you've come from Microsoft engineering background. You were a female engineer, the first one in Microsoft, for one of the first ones, and then leaving that world to become a leader in the development of a conscious school in India. And I want to urge everybody to watch the first part, because we mentioned a lot of tools that you can do with children in the first part, and what all brings about a new shift and paradigm shift in parenting in teaching. So in this segment, Jayashree will tell us all about her discovery of conscious parenting, what that does, the challenges, and how to bring your child into spirituality. Thank you, Jayashree, for sharing again with us here in segment number 2.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
And thank you for calling us here from India. It's in the morning in India. You're in Bangalore area, correct?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And then here we are in the Northwest Pacific of America in the evening.
Yes. Yeah, I must share something really wonderful. Today, as we're doing this interview, right, there's a festival to Lord Ganesh that's happening here in India. And he's a remover of obstacles. Awesome. So I just hope that, this segment is going to help, all of us remove more obstacles so our children can just really dream big.
Yes. That is so auspicious. And you know what I have been finding is, we were talking on the day of the solar eclipse. We had interviews. We had on the celebration in Bali of Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. We had Paragwesi, the celebration of the goddess, when just a few days ago in Bali. We've been having these very potent celebrations that are based on the Hindu calendar of understanding time. And the Hindus in general are still very aware of timing, rhythmic, cosmic energy, and our actions. So thank you for bringing that up. And maybe I can ask you a little bit into this, how you bring understanding of cosmic timing into your life.
Yeah, how do I bring understanding of cosmic timing into my life? I think perhaps, that's a beautiful question. Just in terms of perhaps the intentions with what we plan to do, I think when we are clear on our intentions, and the universe, the field helps us with the timing. It's letting God in, right?
Yes.
In many ways, I cannot even claim to do it all myself. There are these wonderful coincidences that just happen. I mean, we didn't plan for it to be this way, but it's almost like when our intention is very pure, and the universe just puts us together for a perfect manifestation.
Absolutely. A tiny story. When I was when we were building our retreat center, Shambhala in Bali, on the very first day that we sold the first cup of coffee, actually we are vegetarian and do also raw food, but we still have coffee for the Western Europeans. The very first cup of coffee was sold on a day where our cook had taken off in the afternoon because she was opening her shop. Because if she sold something on this particular auspicious day and made money on that day, the first one, it was going to be guaranteeing her entire process of having a business success. And we just happened to sell the first cup of coffee, and we just happen to be open. And like you said, divine guidance makes that happen without you even knowing about it, if your intention is aligned. And so that's when I learned from my cook. She said, oh my God, you are so blessed to have this happen on this very day. on the door of this cosmic alignment, which Western people look at like, yeah, right. But like when you start realizing God cosmic timing and you observe your alignment, like you just did, you see how your timelines line up with cosmic events. So now over to you. Just go with cosmic parenting.
Okay. Okay. So which part of it? There are so many aspects to it.
Okay. So first of all,
yeah.
when you start, you have your own teenage kids. How is it? How do you differentiate between conscious parenting, unconscious parenting, and or automatic parenting?
Okay. See, most of us sort of grow up. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't want to speak for someone else, but most of parenting is done in an automatic way. And a parent pretty much, at least when I was growing up, the role of the parent was as the provider, as the material provider. You know, when I was growing up, there wasn't much talk of emotional connection or, you know, looking at a larger perspective in terms of the role of the parent. And I think as society has evolved, as consciousness has evolved, many of us today have the opportunity to share at a higher level. I believe I'm really grateful to my parents for giving me all that wonderful material foundation so I can now come on to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so I completely want to acknowledge it's just a natural progression for all of us. I do believe, like everything else, parenting is also progressing to the next level, which is bringing in the beautiful qualities of love and compassion and connection and, you know, spiritual reality into parenting. So that's sort of where, you know, we, to be able to leverage this beautiful new consciousness, we have to become conscious ourselves. In automatic or unconscious parenting, you're just going from event to event without really becoming mindful of what is happening, what am I going through, what is happening. And then there's a lot of blame and victimhood and kind of, you know, entanglement between parent and child. Many times we project our fears onto children. So the new age, the new consciousness is giving us an opportunity to really press the pause button. You know, we pause, we bring mindfulness and say, okay, where am I operating from?
Yes.
And do I really want the best for my child? If I want the best for my child, like I bring back the mother's guidance, then I must have the best for me. You know?
Yes. And so how do you, when you go into conscious self-awareness and you connect to your own higher self, so to speak, and your source, how do you come back out? And then how does that shift the dynamic between you and the child? You know, the typical dynamic is like, look, I know better. You do what I say. End of story, right? And shifting into mutual respect. How do you do that?
So this is sort of, you know, the old style was power over, right? That's what you're talking about. But you realize, you know, power over in the power over styles. I would say power over style is useful, say, in a military area with the war going on. Yeah, but we're not in war every day. Power with a child where you hold your right power as a parent. It's important for us to not, power with is not giving away your power to your child. Okay, I want to be very careful. We need to hold, we are parents, our children are children. We need to each take our correct position.
Yes.
From that position, power with brings a beautiful intelligence. It allows your children to become conscious creators themselves. When you do power over, they are obedient. You get obedient, but many times they are experimenting behind your back. Because they're afraid of you. And, you know, the worst, of course, is that you completely lose your connection, your relationship with your child.
Right.
And on top of it, remember that it's not war and military every day.
Right.
You know, life is beautiful. For us to be able to share that kind of a bond with our children and develop and help become facilitators so they themselves are developing an intelligence.
Okay.
That's sort of where power with goes. Yeah.
And so how do you support developing the mindfulness and the awareness and the power within the child? What kind of techniques can you share with us?
So you have to, I want to bring up, conscious parenting is first working on yourself. See, you have to become aware of yourself first before we can pass it on to anyone else. So I can broadly think of two aspects of conscious parenting. One is just knowing where you're operating from. what are my intentions, when I'm parenting? What are the fears? Are these automatic fears? Are they based on failures? Am I projecting onto my child? What are the feelings? How am I, how am I communicating, or am I communicating? Many times there are huge expectations from children, which the children are unaware of, and they become trigger points between parent and child. So a lot of awareness has to be brought into the process of parenting.
Of being aware of oneself.
The art of it. So that's one part. And the second part is connecting to source. Or do it the other way, connecting to source, right? So now that we know where we are from, do we blame ourselves? Absolutely not. This is where I am today, with all my lifetimes, with all the generations, with all the surroundings I've grown up in. This is where I humbly am today.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to allow source, I'm going to take the love from source to be able to melt away some of that, so I can now go a little bit higher.
Yes.
That's the journey of conscious parenting, marrying source energy, and the awareness helps us know where we have dark spots and be able to bring source energy to fill us with light. And
that is powerful. So yes, so first we source ourselves to the center of the universe. We bring self-awareness and self-love and self-forgiveness into who we are. We appreciate where we've come from, and then we also say, where do I really want to go? Now, how do I generate and stimulate that kind of self awakening in the child?
So first of all, children tend to download from you energetically. It's amazing. Okay, so many times it happens without words. Right? Okay. They watch you. They are watching you whether they or you are aware of it or not.
Okay.
So many times they just pick up from you. This is just natural for them. They're like, oh, okay, this is how I am because we are living this way. So that's the first part. And the second aspect of it is helping when the children are old enough. Again, it's in age appropriate ways. With young children, I believe, giving them an emotional intelligence curriculum right at the beginning, where they are able to see, okay, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I am experiencing in my body. And sometimes little children can be angry, and if you can just make them pause and breathe into it and they find their anger goes away, wow, that's magic for them.
Stepping back, away from the emotion and locating it as a thing almost within themselves, rather than getting consumed.
Absolutely. So that's sort of a way you break in. So you change from unconscious automatic behavior. My friend hit me, so I'm going to hit right back, right? That's the first step. And then it's like, my friend hit me and I'm feeling bad about it. So I reach out to a nurturing caregiver and I share how I feel. That would be the second. And a nurturing caregiver mirrors back to me saying, yeah, I care, and I'm here to listen to you. Are you feeling sad? But if the caregiver is practicing conscious parenting, they're not going to go into blame, and instead they're just going to help the child feel better and develop the strength in them. And then we're going to probably talk about boundaries. How can you set better boundaries so you don't allow this to happen? Right. So that's also important. So this is very practical work in a way. It's very grounded work. Children really ground you.
Yeah.
In many ways, you have to make it very real from them. How can I fix my own problems? So that's, from victimhood, where you're just saying, oh, that kid did this to me, to a journey of how am I feeling because of this situation? What can I learn from this? That's a great way to bring consciousness in for children.
And so you dialogue. You encourage dialogue and self-awareness, body-centered awareness, focusing techniques of where do I feel what.
And breathing works like magic with children, because they're much lighter than adults. So when they go through stuff and they learn that they can breathe. But I have kids who come and say, I can connect to a tree and feel better, or they're so open to nature. So sometimes, power animals work wonderfully with children. The first thing when you sense your child is going through something is teaching them how to bring themselves back to ease. And when they're very little, you mirror that back to them. I'm here to pay attention to you, right? So then they feel that worthiness. And soon, slowly, because without that worthiness, sometimes children need us to mirror back to them. And then the next step is just learning how to, the self-care in simple ways. It's not, many times it takes only 2 minutes with children because they are lighter than us. And then they're off there and they're playing, And yeah, so that's at the
I
early ages. And again, like I
Mhm.
said, the teenagers, you can use many different modalities. And sometimes teenagers also, they will question you, and
Yeah.
they're not ready to buy into everything that you have. So I found that it's important for us to be able to offer it in areas that are important to them,
Hmm.
not just as a, like sometimes my kids are now, getting ready for their exams, right? So then they would be able
And
to
you're
use some of these processes to help them visualize better, to help them with better self-confidence, with better focus.
Yes.
And that's when, so our spiritual processes have to make sense to them
Right. And be
in a very
tangible.
real way
Yeah.
and be tangible. So that's probably, children are more grounded in some ways.
Hmm.
And as they're earthing and they're, growing through life, they love the experience, and they're very quick to experience light. You tell
Yes.
them to connect to light, they connected to light. That's
Yeah.
it. It's a little different with teenagers, but the younger ones. And so the more you kind of go through that, you bring that consciousness into them as well.
Exactly. And so I
Yeah.
think it is very important to start early on. I
Yes.
remember myself, I had abilities and fantasies and imaginations I shared with my sister. But when
Yes.
I entered my age 13 or so, my puberty years, for both my sister and I, it vanished for a couple years. And we
Yeah,
still
it does.
talk about it now in retrospect, and
Yeah.
we go, it was kind of gone between 14 and
Yeah.
16. It's just like we
Yes.
try. I remember saying to my sister, let's pretend we're a higher self. And we made that technique up ourselves. Mm, we couldn't. We just simply, I couldn't make it up anymore. And we
Yeah.
both were like, it doesn't work anymore. And so we were sad. But both of us, when we were
Hmm.
past 16, returned
Came
to
back.
that ability and started
Yeah.
meditating naturally
Yeah.
and read all those books. And so I think it's, as parents, and I'm adding this right now, it's just time to remember that hormones do take over, and
Yeah,
they
they
are.
do. And it's also important for them, in the beginning, they're very receptive to you. And
Mhm.
it's important for them to kind of go away and come back to it themselves. I think
Yes.
that's kind of what happens in that gap. I keep
Yes.
reminding myself because I go through that too.
Yeah.
So it's just important that they kind of almost like they have to temporarily reject it and then see it for themselves. And
Yes.
they have to use it in a space that makes sense to them.
And
So
that's
that's
also
really
according to
important.
Rudolf
Yeah,
Steiner, when the time period of the
absolutely.
greatest intellectual and logical
Yes,
mind development
yes,
is,
yes,
which
yes,
is not the part that says, I see the mystical world. It's the part that's nuts and bolts and
yes.
where am I? And yeah, typically the real physical,
Absolutely.
like the hormones pump into the body.
Absolutely. And you want to question everything and, rebel against everything that you know. And but you know what? I do find that if you're practicing conscious parenting and
Yes.
you can take care of your own reactions, because it's very natural when your child does that, you have your own reactions.
Hmm.
If you can take care of that and neutralize it,
Yeah.
then kids kind of bounce back faster to whatever
Yes.
is right for them.
Yes.
Because if you resist it and you're like, oh, I did all this for you, and now where are you, kind of a thing, then
Yeah.
you're going to feed that. So it's just best to understand that children have their own journey, and there are going to be times when they will make their own choices, and then
True.
and deal with our reactions to that. It's important to deal with that.
And like you said, it's their time to develop their own choices and become
Absolutely.
more
Yes,
adult.
yes. And
I love
sometimes,
that. I love that. Sorry, go ahead.
no, and sometimes it's absolute. Sometimes you find they're able to connect with other adults, in certain areas, and it's important for them to be able to do that. So you
Yes.
find other wise adults, who are there. They may receive support from them. It may not
Yes.
be only from you, and that's beautiful. Their world is expanding,
Do you
and they're
ever
very.
intentionally suggest for parents to find that, or did you set that up that you're calling in other adults for the position of maybe sharing similar points of views as you have yourself, but so that their children can hear it through
Yes.
that?
Yes, I did. There was a time at which I had to very consciously take a decision that I'm not going to be only my child's therapist, but my child's mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to separate out and say it's okay for my child to receive, help from somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
because they may have problems with me sometimes, and I just
Yeah.
make space for that. I said, it's okay. I'm not going to take it personally. I want my child to get help, and I'm going to deal with my own stuff.
Beautiful.
So that was an important part for me. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, because that really comes from a mature level sense of self-esteem. You don't take offense at your child becoming an independent being and needing other inputs.
Yes.
My mom drew on other adults for me to visit and talk things over with, to
Yes.
get
Yes.
perspectives so it wasn't
Mhm.
only her perspective. They had different ways of seeing things. And so I was able to bounce things off
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
adult perspectives. And that was
Yes.
really it utterly shaped my life.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really want to encourage that we allow. Well, I know some people, like for example, in some ways, uh, I know we've talked about that. Your children having the exposure to another person who gives maybe a similar perspective as you, but it comes through another person's mouth.
It comes, and it helps. That helps. It just comes, and sometimes it's also a safe space for them to explore their own connection without feeling like they're offending me. Sometimes children don't want to offend their parent.
Right.
Like they just want a safe space where they can just go and say that without, and
Her,
that happens. I found that with my kids. They just want their own space sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that some parents have called me in to be the godmother, so to speak, without me taking
Yes.
on the legal role. But
Right.
being that spiritual godmother who regularly shows up in their children's lives, who like every year or so is there and talks, this icon of a person that lives that way, like
Yeah.
the mother
Yeah.
and father maybe do. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not just
Yes.
all weirdos, it's like that's just how,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we do that in our school, being a supportive community. We do that to
Yes.
help each other out. And, there's always in India, they're called aunties, right?
Yes.
There's always this friendly auntie you can go and talk to. And it's not, if not your parent. And that helps a lot. So
Yes.
that's where the Sangha space that I talked about earlier,
Yeah.
a space where we're all helping each other and grow as well as challenging each other is very
Right.
important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's hard at that time, your parental ego comes up and says, oh my God, see, she's going to share something about me with somebody else, and you need to watch that. You
Okay.
need to watch that, and it's important to take care of yourself, but
Uh,
it's important to be aware it's only an ego, and ultimately your child's going to benefit, and both of you are going to benefit from this.
oh, that
I've
is so
always
beautiful.
found it benefits both of us, and we do have to learn to put our parental egos aside sometimes in the
Put our
journey of.
egos aside. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Let's go back to some of these techniques we can teach early on. I know because I've written a children's book for that purpose. I've had children and exposure to it. They seem to understand really quite well how to talk with these emotions and how to transform them,
Absolutely.
even at age
Yes.
6, right?
Yes, absolutely. At age 6, 7, 8, it's amazing. They can just draw. They
Mm-hmm.
don't even have to write. If the journaling sometimes comes at a later age.
Yes.
They draw it out, and then they're like, okay, and power animals work
Yes.
magically across ages. There's something about children and animals.
Yes.
Having a power animal friend, having a tree friend, having a hugging a pillow. These kind of things are very quick, and Leonard Orr always talks about 20 connected breaths. I find that works
20
magically.
connected breaths.
Breaths. He talks about that. He teaches 20 connected breaths, where you just have to take 20 breaths in a situation. It works magically with children because they are much lighter.
Mm-hmm.
If they just learn to breathe when they're having that seems to
Okay.
very quickly it changes for them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 20 connected, meaning in and out without
Yes.
stopping.
It's a rebirthing technique
Okay.
of 20 connected breaths. It's 4 short breaths and 1 long breath
Okay.
that you are doing in a connected way. So there's no stop. There's in breath, out breath, connected.
Okay, can
And
you show us? Can you show us?
can I show you that? Okay,
Yes.
let me just do this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it noisily so you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like.
Okay, so we can see it in your breath, in your chest going up. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, da, da. Breathe in deep, breathe in out deep. And you do that 20 times.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so let me just repeat this for anybody who's just listening. Yeah. We go, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
And the
So,
last exhale is the fifth breath is very long. So you're really relaxing. So it's
okay.
4 short breaths and 1 long breath.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you do that 20 times.
Yeah. Basically, it's a total of 20 breaths. So if you're taking a cycle of 5, it's 4 times. So it's 4 short breaths and 1 long breath. That's
Yeah.
1 cycle. Yeah. So
Four.
that's 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 times. Oh, 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
5. Repeated 4 times is 20
Okay.
breaths.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
4
20
times.
connected breaths.
Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't take long. It's
It's
easy.
very quick. Yeah.
That is
And
cool.
it works beautifully. Yeah.
So, what do you find about oxygenating the breath, oxygenating the brain through breath, continuous breath, as breath work does, and holding and locking in negative or releasing negative emotions?
Uh, I find both. So when you oxygenate, it just kind of makes you pause. It puts a pause on that, flow of thought. It
Okay.
goes, you're thinking, you're building up all these stories, and you just take a pause and you breathe. So it sort of cuts off the energy from feeding a really big story that's going to create a lot of problems for you. So that's the first part.
So you step
And the
out
second
of the
part,
picture, so
you
to
step
speak.
out of it a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes longer than 20 breaths, but kids are lighter. With older children, it may need a little bit longer.
Okay.
But
How
breathing
long?
just basically, again, it depends on the problem. It depends on the child. So that's
Okay.
why I'm not giving any general. But what may take an adult, say 20 minutes, a kid can get done in 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they are lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And except for, a couple of really turbulent years in adolescence when, they may need than longer than that. But and that's also the time that they don't want to take help, and sometimes they just need to go through that little bit of
Yeah.
isolation
Right.
before they're ready to come back.
Yeah.
So by and large, the breathing helps you pause and not feed the story. That's
Mm-hmm.
the first part. And the second part is just you get your energy flowing again. So it teaches you to flow and brings a level of calmness enough for you to look at the situation and say, okay, now what's going on here?
Okay.
Without completely building up a story. Yeah.
Okay, so it oxygenates the body, and I find when people oxygenate themselves, they typically run into the blockages, even of past life blockages, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yes.
oxygenation amplifies our astral body. It energizes our mental and astral body.
Yes. Yeah. Although Leonard does say it's not just the oxygen, but the prana,
Yes,
the cosmic energy that you're taking in
yes.
through the process of breath. And many times we do affirmations like breathing in love and breathing out stress.
Mm-hmm.
The exhales are wonderful. When you learn to have a long exhale, it's that capacity to let go.
Okay.
And the whole body relaxes in that
Yes.
process.
Yeah. So, have you seen children come from age 6 now into adulthood, or at least teenagehood, having been brought up like this? Right. So,
Yes.
how are they different from other teenage kids?
How are they different? I think probably the biggest difference is their own self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
and their ability to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Are they more creative? Are they more?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. So, see, those are the things. Again, I don't want to take those for granted. They're more creative. Their exams happen more effortlessly.
Yes.
Yeah. They do prepare. See, one of the reasons as a holistic school, more than using the word alternative, ultimately they have to be able to live this in society. It's not to
Yes.
alienate them and create of course we create our own reality and all that, but so I find that the stresses, they are so much better prepared when they have to actually go out into exams and go out. And one of the kids, our first graduate from school, she put it this way. She said, what, Jayashree auntie, that's what she calls me. She said, when I first went out, I was kind of looking at everything was so different. And after a little while, I just realized that I need to connect to me. I think she just put it so simply and so beautifully. She said, for a while I was looking at this and this and this, and then I just realized I need to connect to me again. And I started practicing mandalas. We do a lot of coloring work.
Okay.
She said, I started practicing mandalas again, where I was coloring, and I felt I came back to me.
Okay.
And I think that was such an important way of describing it. When we don't have schools like this, it takes many years for us to realize that we have to come back to me. that I have to
Yeah.
come back into myself.
Yeah.
I think, it's not like, of course, it also depends on a child's journey. There are so many other things as well. But we as adults can choose to co-create this kind of a space. And the children who are ready for it come in. And, they have a certain level of inner awareness, the learning meditation and chanting and art and, the calming, the soothing, the connection to the higher self techniques early on.
Okay.
Just puts it, I feel it becomes body wisdom for them.
Yes.
In a way.
So you do practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you practice becoming aware of the higher self through playful,
Absolutely.
imaginary journeys
Yes.
at first, guided meditations.
Yes.
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 Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. It's exactly. And that's why that's what I've done with children. I've given them these techniques that I've summarized in my children's book. And who knows, maybe I'll make them available at a lower price here on this page with you for the Indian audience, for sure, that they can download an app that guides the children into exactly these kinds of techniques.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Absolutely. I wanted to share with you a very nice technique that Dr. Newton had brought in when he visited school, which many of the children still remember.
Okay.
He taught the children how to take something negative and give a color to it, and then transform it into a favorite color of their choice. Even the littlest ones got it,
Cool.
He said, imagine a balloon that is sad, or, that is, and then how would you make it into happy? So that was there as well. And we would welcome, what you have to offer. And it's just great. And, Leonard's breathing. And I'm very grateful that we have access to this so it can help our children. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember, in a funny way, this comes full circle. Back a long time ago, I brought a seminar to India, and Dr. Newton and his wife came to attend my seminar. I was very blessed. I didn't know. And at that time, they weren't doing that kind of work yet. They were still doctors, and they were in the process of developing all this. And it is amazing what they've done. Amazing. They go to prisons. They go to schools. They teach meditation. They teach the techniques. They, with the help of a lot of volunteers, have really developed a movement. So incredible what, once a person says, this is what I want to do, what they can move, what they say. He developed Life University, and with help people like you who contributed and donated time and effort, big movements can take place. A lot more so in India than maybe even here in the West, but that's where India can teach us a lot of seva, of service, of contributing to a larger vision together.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Same with Padriji and the Thrive movement. We will have Pinky Daga on here from the Thrive movement, also from India, and the whole modernizing the Indian understanding. You've taken tools from the West as well as from the East and merged them into, and India luckily is a fertile ground where this kind of schooling is permitted, whereas here in the West they now say, got this today in the paper, no, you cannot have prayer by a coach, let's say a football coach, you cannot have a prayer on the football field, you cannot talk to God before playing football, it's out. Because you could offend somebody, it's like, well, could we just unify and say there is one source, and we all close our eyes and go, amp me up and make me strong, It's like,
so be it. I hope that happens.
Yes.
I truly hope it happens.
Yes. And so I think India is definitely showing the way, and where that is permitted and still embedded in the culture. So that's Absolutely. Why I'm asking you as an Indian representative to give us, of course, we have Montessori, we have Rudolf Steiner, we have that in the West too. But by and large, I think Asia and India will be able to show the way, because they still have that much more embedded in the culture.
Yes. Thank you.
Is there anything else? For example, my question to you would be, you have the alternative approach, the holistic approach, but you also make sure you're accredited. Do you see there's a conflict in there? How does it dovetail? I know you've given some answers, but tell me about that.
Yeah. So, see, I don't even see it as a conflict. Some people perceive it that way.
Hmm.
It's a conflict if you feel you're against something.
Yes.
Uh, I'm not against anything. I'm here out of the joy of wanting to raise my kids more holistically.
Yeah.
Uh, to be with me, to be with this, and to have a space for education.
Hmm.
And you know what? And may it prepare for them. May it prepare them to be able to take life in all its glory and all its challenges. And that's it. And so I don't see it as a conflict that children. In fact, I see that having to take exams is a wonderful opportunity for spiritual growth for the children. It can teach them self care, it can teach them the importance of the mind, it can teach them to practice abundance work.
Hmm.
Hey, you learn prosperity consciousness through that. It can teach you how to manage stress, how to handle ups and downs.
Hmm.
um, all of these are beautiful spiritual lessons. So I don't see it as a contradiction at all. I see it as only something that can help us.
So by making sure that they
Yeah.
are up to Western normal or Eastern, I don't know, whatever scholastic standings,
Yeah. Yeah.
you make sure they can also operate in the Western or in the modern
Yes,
world, in the modern world, I
absolutely.
should say. Sorry
And
for
it's a
saying Western.
choice.
Yeah.
See, there are some children who opt out of it, and we
Hmm.
totally honor that. We are
Hmm.
not, there are children, for example, there was a kid who wanted to be a footballer, and he said exams are of no use for me, and he chose not to do that. And that's absolutely fine with us.
Okay.
We support, but there are children who want to study something or who want to go on for higher education,
Yes.
who feel the need to take up exams, and we'll prepare them. So it's like, see, everything that we are here is to help us move in life.
Right.
So it's holistic education.
Right.
It's not mainstream versus alternative, but it
Exactly.
is holistic education that is trying to help the children in ways that are perhaps more expanded,
Yes.
and which bring us and our children empowerment and joy. That's it.
Perfect. And so what do you do? How do you take your children into nature, into extracurricular experiences? What have you chosen, for
Yes.
example? Give us some
My
examples.
favorite question. Thank you.
Yes, really?
Yes, my absolute favorite question. Well, one of my favorite parts in the school, there are so many things that I love, is that we take a field trip out for 15 days or 20 days. And last year we went up to Ladakh, and in the high mountains, and we visited Buddhist monasteries, and
Mm,
and went up there and played in the desert on sand dunes. The children played cricket on sand dunes, and
mm,
just, oh my god, I mean, Ladakh teaches you more about silence
mm.
than anything else.
That is
It
like the
is just an
or
amazing.
at least Tibetans have
Yes,
gone there, and it is high in the
yes,
mountains. It's part of India. It's in the
absolutely.
Himalayas.
Yes. So we take once a year, we take them on a field trip. This year we're planning to go to the desert
Yes.
and be able to experience that. We go and spend an extended amount of time in nature. Apart from that, it's also, we have a lot of gardening and, connecting with the soil. So everyone grows things. That's part of it.
Ah,
Learning
perfect.
to connect and grow.
Yes.
Every morning in our morning meditation, we give gratitude to the plants and the trees. And so that kind of mindfulness on what we can do in our own neighborhood is there. There's a lake nearby, so we give gratitude to the lake and to the birds and the animals. So the children kind of grow up noticing nature around them,
Yes.
giving gratitude to all the natural elements. So that's a beautiful way. And then field trips, where we go out and spend extended amount of time. In our current space, we've tried to make it as green as possible.
Hmm.
But of course, long term, we would need a bigger space, and we're hoping to, have a more forested area around us. So
Right.
that's our dream. That's our
Yes.
next big dream, to
And
have a
you
bigger campus for our school. Yeah.
and I know you've taken your children to swim with dolphins.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, my another absolutely favorite trip, right? And that was with you, and a time in the past as well. Being out in the ocean when my children were able to connect to dolphins. Oh my God, I think that taught them more about love and vibration and energy at the ocean, and intention more than anything else. Thank you, Ilona. That was just an amazing, amazing trip for
But
us. It
so
changed
you
our whole family.
Oh, really? Oh, so sweet.
Yes,
Well, one of the things I love about what you've done, you've taken your children to these elements like the desert, the forest, the ocean, not just a
yes,
one time to dip your toe in, but then you go
yes,
again to different places and
yes.
consciously expose them almost to the fears and the challenges that brings about.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. When we went into Ladakh, it was high altitude.
Yes.
Many children had never gone out of our city.
Mm.
So for them, the thought of going up high altitude, and then we would do affirmations and visualizations
Mm-hmm.
for safety, and the children all came out of it. You know,
Awesome.
there was very little, I mean, we had a little bit of altitude sickness, but they learned how to take care of themselves and come back. So, taking them into nature helps
Yes.
them know how to go beyond challenges.
Yes.
And sometimes, when something is hard, it's okay not to give up. And
Yeah.
that's where when we go as a group, their friends are saying, no, you can do it, you can do it. And then they do it and they come back and say, yes, I could do it. So that's amazing
Awesome.
as
I
well.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
beautiful part of what you call a sangha, a group, a community of friends and
Yes.
parents who are similarly minded. Let me
Yes.
ask you, do you find that children who are taught in the holistic way actually supersede other children scholastically in similar age groups?
I think it's too
Normally
premature for
taught.
me to, yeah, so it's too premature for me to make that comparison just because we haven't done any formal studies or tests on it. I know
But
our kids are able to get their A grades with minimum effort
I mean,
compared to perhaps, some other people. So it's probably best for me to not, I
compare
know
your.
that, yeah, just I found that they're able to take the exams more effortlessly
Mhm.
compared to maybe some of our other friends who we know whose kids are going to mainstream schools. There's more stress, there's less self-care, so there's less awareness, and even the knowledge that they can get over it is not there.
Yes.
Knowledge that the wisdom that, hey, I can take this and it can be a more pleasant experience is simply not there.
Ah, so the self-empowerment is added.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
honest,
it makes things more effortless. I think that for sure I can say. We've
well,
seen that with all our children. Growing up more holistically can help them achieve or do what they need to do more
yes.
effortlessly.
Well, one of the
Yeah.
things I have observed, and I've observed quite a number of people who've like either homeschooled their children or let the child's natural desire to want to know
Yeah.
and the exposure to their interest field, which is a
Yeah.
Montessori approach. I mean, we know that from Maria Montessori, is the children excel. The
Yeah.
children I've seen who've been brought up in the alternative holistic way, all, bar none, have been way higher than other kids of similar grades in their school, in their
Yes, thank
learning.
you for saying that. I mean,
Yes.
it's just we haven't done any tests ourselves, but we are seeing that it is possible to have, there's somehow in India, especially, I don't know if this is so much there in the West, there is a conditioning that our children have to kind of go through hell to do well in exams. And that's not the case. You don't need to do that.
Right.
We don't need to do that. It is possible to have a joyful childhood. It's possible to still be responsible. It's still possible to do well.
Yes.
And I think that's the gift that that we
Beautiful.
can bring in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love, and this is probably coming in India more and more. I mean, you still had arranged marriage, although your parents were kind enough to ask you if you liked their arrangement, right?
Yes, I had a semi-arranged in the sense my husband and I decided to get to know each other for a while, and we had complete freedom in how long and when to decide. Yes.
And
So
to
I
also
was not,
decide no, yeah? You had that
yeah,
freedom
to
as well.
decide a no as well. Yes, yes.
Okay.
We had complete freedom to say yes or no and to see, to really get to know each other before taking a decision.
Yeah, because I
But yeah,
know.
the initial introduction came through our parents.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much it. After that, we requested for space and they gave us the space. So
I'm just going to ask you this because I know that we will have an Indian audience as well. What will your next step be for yours? I mean, I met your daughters, and I have to say, your daughters are way beyond their years. I mean, I try to think back of how I was when I was 14 or 16, and I was blown away by your children.
thank
So
you, Ilona.
the degree of everything, every aspect of how they were, how they talked, how I was able to communicate with them, off the charts. Now, I want to ask you, how are you going to take this next step of once they reach dating time, and how are you going to deal with that? Any ideas?
Oh gosh. Okay. I haven't given it too much thought.
Uh-huh.
I think to me, what I would want is what I would want for me. It's to make sure that the partner I'm with is genuinely respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And there's both togetherness as well as space in the togetherness. And that's sort of, I've received an enormous amount of respect and support from my own husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope my children will receive, that's
And
something that we're already living with. Yeah.
okay, so they
And
model that they start
yeah, they
modeling
model
and
that. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Because children do watch their parents' relationships, and
Yes.
then, and of course, they're also exposed to many wonderful couples like,
Yes.
yourself and Dawn, and, they've met Dr. Newton and Lakshmi, and,
Yes.
so many people who are there as role models on
Okay.
relationships. I feel both the role modeling as well as, them having a good self-esteem is,
Yes.
yeah, so will hopefully, help them make the right choice and attract the right person into their lives.
Okay, so
Yes.
I think you hit the nail on the button by saying role model, live or be or draw other people into your life that you
Yes.
wish
And take
to.
help. Yeah.
Yes.
If,
And
if
then supporting the self-esteem growth, which actually self-esteem comes from a number of places. One, being positively supported and getting praise.
yes.
I suppose we didn't talk about that. Do you praise your children a lot? Do you give them verbal support, or how do you stand about that? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. It's not, it's just a natural, it's, I do give positive affirmations. I find
Mm-hmm.
that that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I don't have any problem calling out challenge areas. So as long as both are balanced,
Yes.
and this is something we do a lot in school as well. We keep saying, these are my areas of strength,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the areas that need improvement.
Yes.
And these are the areas where I have challenges. So as long as both are done, I don't see any problem with it.
Okay.
So just both go hand in hand.
That is
Yeah.
beautiful, because it isn't like you're just all good and cocoon, but it's also like learning to deal with conflict.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So, the honesty and integrity with which we give feedback matters. And
Yes.
I give very honest feedback. I receive both honest feedback as well as give honest feedback to my kids. And, well, they give me honest feedback too.
Yeah.
And, getting that has made a lot of difference.
Have
So
you
I love receiving, receiving positive feedback as well. And I'm sure
right.
every human does.
Well, I
So
know
there's
that
value.
I've observed in life the people who've done really well, who were successful, very often tell, or have told in interviews and such, that their parents were very affirmative of them and loved them unconditionally. So this
Yes.
very supportive, loving attitude gave them the chance to grow and to become
Yes.
them, whoever they wanted to be.
Absolutely. And the other beauty of discussing challenges is, like I said, we
Yes.
also discuss our own challenges. So our children see that, and they
Yes.
see that we are also facing it and we're trying to come above it, and they see that.
Okay.
And when we discuss challenges and when we discuss our children's challenges and still love them,
Yeah.
they really feel unconditionally loved.
Okay.
Because that's an important part. It's not only the positive praise, but I love you even though I know you have a challenge in this area.
Yes.
I think that would be the single most important message that parents can give. It's like, yeah, we all have our challenges, we all have our areas of growth, but I love you no matter what.
Ah,
That's sort of the,
perfect.
yeah.
Yes. Have you ever worked with nonviolent communication and Marshall
Very
Rosenberg's
much.
work?
Very much. I spent 3 years before I came back to India. When I first had my daughter, Marshall Rosenberg's work on nonviolent communication really transformed me from,
Yes.
taking responsibility for my needs, for myself,
Yes.
and stop being a victim. I think it's one of the most beautiful methods to get you out of victimhood.
Yes.
To realize that you have certain needs and feelings which you're projecting onto others, and to take self-responsibility. I had immersed for 3 years in this.
Oh,
From the
yes.
year 2000 onwards, 2000 to 2003 was just an immersion in nonviolent communication.
Yes.
It really helped me tremendously. I still find it immensely useful in communities.
Yes.
Because, while we're all spiritual and we all have our growth, and we see that sometimes simple communication can really help.
Yes. It's
instead of
clear.
making assumptions,
Yes.
instead of making assumptions about each other, just to clear, it's much, much faster.
Okay, so let's just take,
Yeah.
because, my dream was to have a spokesperson for NVC, nonviolent communication, and Marshall Rosenberg's work be part of the summit. It hasn't happened yet. If I stumble across somebody who could be, can we just take 3 minutes on discussing some ground rules on NVC, on nonviolent communication?
Okay, so I must say I'm not a certified trainer
No,
of NVC.
I'll fill in some steps. Because
yes. So, but I've used it extensively in my life.
Yes.
And we have studied the books of Marshall Rosenberg and practicing it in our community.
Awesome.
The 3 most amazing things it does to me is, it helped me accept my feelings. It helped me accept that, yes, I have feelings. It's not just, I'm just not, and the difference between thoughts and feelings was very, very clear after NVC. The second part is to realize that I am reacting because of my own needs, my own intentions, my own desires. I'm in a situation and having a particular reaction because of that. So to take ownership and say, hey, I'm the source of my own conflict was very important. Instead of just blaming others.
Yes.
You're not doing this, and this, versus, I have this need. And I may request you to please cooperate with me. Oh, wow. What a change in attitude, right?
Yes. So it's like, let's just take first steps. Okay, so we identify if we're in a conflictual situation or any time, what are my baseline fears? Is mad, glad, sad, fear? What do I feel?
Yeah. So Marshall Rosenberg came up with a very rich vocabulary of feelings. So I found that sometimes there are as many as 20 different emotions alive in a particular situation. He was the first one to give us the vocabulary, to give us the way to describe and to differentiate. I mean, he made me so self-aware.
Yes.
So learning under him, so that was wonderful. So to have a very rich vocabulary and
instead of like going, you're making me feel, I then say, look, hey, can we stop? I'm feeling angry when you put on 3 drops of oil too many on my pancake. And
absolutely, yes.
Is it?
And I'm needing
yes,
to have a more dry pancake. I'm just kidding.
Okay, no, exactly.
So it's like what he taught, what I learned the best from NVC was, this is my perspective.
Yes.
And the other person has an equally right perspective of their own.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just us not knowing their perspective and them not knowing our perspective. And practicing NVC, sometimes early on, it was a little harder because I didn't have enough meditation when I did it. So it just got too mental for me and I drained out a lot. Yeah.
But it takes a while to integrate it.
It takes a while to integrate it, but once I started combining it with meditation and everything, it's still very, very valid, very useful. So the feelings is one part, understanding and taking ownership of our needs, getting out of victimhood is the second.
Yes.
And the third very beautiful part, which it really enhanced in my life, is to understand that there are many different methods to get your need met.
Yes.
So many times we have conflicts over, I want my method, I want my strategy. But you can realize that there are many, like if I'm wanting love, I may choose to receive it through roses, or I may love to get it through a good dinner, or I may love to get it in some other form, right? If I'm wanting to receive from someone, I don't have to fight over whether receiving roses is better than going out for dinner.
Okay, so we look.
This is a funny example. But if you look at it, most of the conflicts that happen in a workplace are, I want my method, not yours,
Okay.
And to realize that there are multiple ways to achieve the same thing. That's the other beautiful thing that NVC brings up. The difference between a strategy and a need. A strategy is a way to achieve your need. And that's something that I got, that I've completely internalized from it.
Right. So we offer, first of all, sharing what our needs are and make it okay to have needs, which I think comes to, it's almost a revelation for many people to be okay with the fact that we have needs and that we don't need to manipulate to get our needs done, that we can simply state them.
Yeah. And we don't have to go and fight with somebody else saying you're not. See, let's be real, right? We have some needs, we have expectations.
Yes.
We project it onto others and say they are at fault for not meeting it.
Right.
And instead of taking responsibility, saying I'm needing it and I'm needing it a particular way, it makes us very humble.
Yeah,
to
and
say
also
that we
sharing,
all
we
have that.
communicate about it. And we take,
Absolutely.
what I
Yeah.
love is he has this beautiful vocabulary of having jackal ears or giraffe ears. The jackal
Yes.
always hears the attack.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
giraffe always has the biggest heart of the animals on
Yes.
Kingdom Earth
Absolutely.
and listens with the heart. And honestly, it took 80% of the arguments out of my marriage.
Yes. And
80%.
that's, yeah, I have the same experience too.
It's like,
Yeah.
I want everybody to Google NVC, Nonviolent Communication, Marshall
And
Rosenberg, read his books, download it, look if you can find a training. It is one of the most and absolutely necessary trainings in conflict resolution communication.
absolutely. And for any community space like ours, it's sort of almost mandatory.
Yes,
It
yes,
reduces conflicts so much. So we do a lot of, sometimes if there's a conflict between two people, a person sits down and just hears both of them out, the practice of empathy and
yes,
listening to both, and then helping each other see each other's point of view,
yes,
because there are many times when both are right,
yes,
both are right. So that's the, so it's, you can really avoid a lot of conflict and
exactly.
unnecessary
Yes,
long,
and
back and
learn to
yeah.
state our needs more easily, more
Yeah.
clearly, without shame,
Yeah.
blame, or guilt.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes, exactly. Okay, so I thank you for indulging me in a little conversation about NVC. I'm glad to hear your enthusiasm, and especially you pointing out how necessary it is in community living.
Yes. In community living and in families, I think it helps a
Yes.
lot. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, that was my dream, and I'm glad at least you have become a spokesperson for it right here. We can ask people to Google the information, nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg.
Yes.
Absolutely
Yes.
stunning.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything I should have asked and you would like to share?
Mm, maybe just as a summary that this is a journey.
Hmm.
Everything that you've heard, it's not a 2-minute fast food kind of a thing.
Right.
It's a journey. The journey of parenting can be, or teaching, or becoming a whole person. To be kind to ourselves. Sometimes when we hear and we try to get into the realm of conscious parenting, we suddenly become aware of, oh my God, there's so much
Yeah.
I need to do. So just take a deep breath and go step by step by step. And each time you're a step ahead of where you were, and that's it. So just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes. And what I
Yeah.
love about it is, like you also said, it's, year after year, you get better and better.
You get better and better and better. You have richer and richer relationships. Parenting becomes easier and easier and easier and more joyful. You celebrate your children more, and yet, we are more real and we are able to face challenges as well. So, yeah,
Uh,
it's a journey.
I would love to share a moment of a training I received with Dr. Vern Wolf, who was on here on Holodynamics. We played in the seminar, we role played, and he had us one be the parent and then later on be the teenage kid. So we switched roles. And essentially, he gave us a challenging situation that we had to play out. But the options were what you referred to earlier, the power over. And the alternative, what was the alternative? It's when we connected with our own higher self and talk to the other person as a soul, as like you already pointed it out. I just want to share this. Like you said, listening to the other person as a beautiful soul. In the dialogue of being empowered in my own self and seeing you as a higher multidimensional soul embodiment, there this where this honor is in my communication rather than the do as I say, not as I do, for example. When we honor each other, we suddenly start talking eye to eye.
Yeah.
We no longer see ourselves in the role of a parent or an adult that has more. We say, oh, wait a second, last lifetime, they might have been my teacher.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and that's a beautiful point of view as well. I mean, we've had so many different roles across different lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's when we go into our higher self. And of course, that's something we have to practice. And becoming aware of our own soul and consciousness is a journey, like you
Yes.
said. Thank you for
Yes.
pointing
Thank you.
that out. Yeah.
I must share, the mother calls parenting and teaching a sadhana. Any of you who've been in India know that sadhana means spiritual practice.
Okay.
It's systematic, regular, time set aside spiritual practice. She just says parenting and teaching are a sadhana in itself.
Ah,
And that's a beautiful journey.
that is beautiful. That is a beautiful metaphor. Thank you so much,
Thank
Jayashree.
you.
I know, my God, we've had almost like another hour of conversation here in the part two. It just ran away with us. I love everything you've said. Thank you so much for your time and
Thank you.
effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Okay,
Thank you.
namaste. Blessings to you to India. I hope,
Namaste.
yes, and I hope lots of people have been inspired by you. And we will see what other resources we can put in here on below the buttons so that people can develop parenting skills. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, namaste. Bye bye.